The big revelation for me didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in a day. It didn't even happen in a week. It happened gradually, creeping up on me. And I just kind of finally realized that, there's a reason why I can embrace getting older. And it's happened to me at what it seems like a steadily increasing pace. I don't know about you, but the way getting older socked me on my butt uh, wasn't easy. And there's that old saying that people say, well, getting older, it ain't for sissies. Well, I learned full hand that getting older isn't for sissies. I can laugh about it now, but I was essentially bedridden for, oh God, I think about 4 or 5 years, and it was a rough time. And it was a rough time for my wife because she had to take care of me. Who wants to spend all their time taking care of somebody? But she didn't complain one bit. She was there for me every step of the way. I was told that the affliction that I had, there's no cure for it, that it would last for the rest of my life. And so I accepted it. That's what you have to do. As you become older, you accept what is. Supposedly, the wisdom told me that I'm going to be in bed for the most part for the rest of my life, and I'm going to just be sitting here, laying here, rotting away day by day. But I just let it happen because that's what you have to do. You have to accept what's going on. And no, I never became angry, and no, I never yelled at anybody, and no, I never, cried about the situation for myself, and I never felt sorry for myself, not for 1 second, not for one moment. What I had was something called Meniere's disease. I know tons and tons of people have it. They think they've got it, or they do have it, or they're diagnosed with it. But what I had was a severe case of Meniere's disease, and that particularly came on to me, uh, I would say, gradually, but suddenly. It's this strange affliction where some of the main afflictions are you get so dizzy, you feel like you're dizzy, you can't walk at all, and it happens suddenly every time you have an attack, and you fall on the floor a lot of times, and you lose your bodily functions um, in a way that I don't know that I want to describe here, but it's like everything is bad. And then if you're alone at the time that the event strikes, a lot of times you can't get up, you can't go to the bed, you can't go to the toilet, you cannot do anything, you cannot function. And a lot of times with this horrific disease, you're you're trying to walk, but you're holding on to the wall so you don't fall, and your sense of balance is gone. And so, no, I didn't feel sorry for myself one moment, but life was not normal after that. You could go for a day or 2 or 3 days and put yourself into a period of denial that, oh man, this isn't going to harm me in any way whatsoever. I'm going to get over this. And that's the way it started out for me. But it didn't go away. It just got worse and worse and worse. And I'm not here to give some kind of a sad story, some sob story. Nobody likes to hear these sob stories. Oh, woe is me, feel sorry for me. But the thing is, for me, here I was a lively, energetic human being for the longest time, a very productive human, very creative, a person that wanted to get out there, meet people, and live and create. And I've always been that way since childhood. So all of a sudden I get to this stage in life where I got socked on both sides of my head in a theoretical sense. And it wasn't good. Calling the ambulance for the first few years, having to be rushed to the hospital. My wife says the first time I was in the hospital, I was just screaming so loudly that I must have upset everybody in the whole emergency room. People could hear me for across the whole hallway. I wasn't screaming out of fear. I was screaming because in my mind I was so dizzy. It was as if I was in some kind of a centrifuge and this thing was confusing the holy poop out of me. And my voice at that time was strong. I've always had a super voice that just boomed. In fact, when I was a young man, I was an opera singer and a singer. And the problem for me when I was in the hospital, my voice just went blah, blah. And gosh, when I woke up the next morning, for some reason, the doctors obviously decided to keep me in the hospital because they couldn't figure it out at that time. And they couldn't figure out what was causing my problem. And that was my first major attack of Meniere's disease. It happened while I was at home and everything. I was asleep and the world started spinning all around. My head was spinning, and it was as if even though my eyes were closed, it was as if I was at the edge of hell in my mind, at the edge of hell. And it wasn't good. It was as if the devil himself had taken a poker and stuck it right where the sun doesn't shine in a metal sense. And so when I was in the hospital the next morning when I woke up, I felt better. They'd given me some kind of a medicine that got rid of the dizziness. And my wife, of course, finally had gone home like 4 in the morning or whatever from the hospital because she needed to sleep, of course. And so when I woke up in the hospital bed, I opened my eyes and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm alive. I'm alive. And I felt so good to be alive. Because, as I already indicated, I felt like I was approaching death, that it was an unexplainable thing, and nobody could quite figure it out. And it was as if one doctor came to me late that night, and he said something about, what we all should know, and I don't remember his exact words. As I recall, he was what we refer to as a medical student, but he was an intern, so he was a doctor at that time, and he goes, you do realize that you're going to die someday. Someday you're going to go. Do you have your affairs in order? Do you have a will, or do you have any provisions you've made for your family? How many children do you have? And this is as they were bringing me up to a patient room from the emergency department. I kind of nodded my head as I recall. I absorbed what he said about the fact that we're all going to die. And so I accepted that. And I embraced it in the sense that I knew that that was going to happen. It's something that I'd been taught since childhood that, we're all going to go someday. But in my mind, I was too blanking young to go, because it's like I'm not afraid to perish. I'm not afraid to go. in a spiritual sense, but I don't want to go. I want to stay here. I want to show love to the world. I want to experience more of the world that I haven't experienced so far before. And all this happened about 6 or 7 years from now at the time that I made this recording. And so then I was after, middle age stage. I was getting more mature, as we say, getting older, obviously. And it was at the point where, uh, you know, um, I was accepting this. My hair was starting to turn gray, and some physical changes. My beautiful, beautiful face, my handsome face no longer was. And so I knew what was happening in my life. I accepted that, as we all must. I don't know what age you are right now, how old you are. Um, I imagine you might be a little bit more mature. Some of you that are watching right now, uh, more mature. I mean, somebody that's over 50 or 65 or whatever. To me, somebody that's 65 years old is pretty darn young right now. So, yeah, anyway, this disease knocked me on my butt, but it got worse. And it's just like this pernicious thing that just, I went home from the hospital and that particular occasion, and, nothing happened for, it was probably another month. And boom, another attack got me, and another attack. And it was like the repetition of these particular events got closer and closer to one another. And it was like an inescapable kind of situation. And none of the doctors gave any theories or hypotheses on what was wrong with me. So the medical world that I had learned so much about, and that I'd come to rely upon, and so many of us rely upon, had failed me as a person, I believed. But ultimately, as I know, Mother Nature takes its course. Mother Nature does what Mother Nature wants, and we cannot blame others for our problems. We cannot blame others every time we get some kind of a horrific disease. If you see my hand shaking, which it is, it's just a uh, hereditary thing that all the more mature people on the maternal side of my family get from my mother and my mother's mother, blah, blah, blah. And it's called a necessary tremors or essential tremors. Some people call it familial tremors. And it's just your hands start to shake. And that brings up the old getting older kind of thing. When I was a little kid, I used to make fun of my grandma. And grandma was the one that gave this to me, this shaky thing, essentially, because it's part of this hereditary thing and it goes down. And when I was a little kid, making fun of grandma, oh, grandma shakes. Oh, grandma, she's like, she looks old. And actually, when I was kind of making fun of my grandma then at that time, I believe she was a little bit over 50. She wasn't older than 55, and she was like shaking and all this. And so the reality of the whole thing struck me home as like, okay, as a mature person, I'm looking back and it's like, wow, I shouldn't have been making fun of grandma as much as I made fun of grandma. No, no, no. It's not a laughable situation. It's just the kind of thing that we begin to accept as we grow more mature, as our lives grow on and begin to progress in those. And I always made fun of my grandma because of her warbly chin that was warbling all over. And now as I mature on and age on in my years, I got the warbly chin and all that kind of nonsense. That grandma, by the way, she lived to like about 102 or 103. She moved on. She got on, and she did very well. And then, of course, when you get older, you look at how your relatives uh, did, how they progressed, what happened to your relatives, and how can that particularly affect you. I don't know who you are, who you're, if you take in mind who your relatives are, no matter what age you have. Uh, if I was to give a little bit of advice to some of the younger people, I would say younger, under 30, 35, but maybe a lot younger than that, is just, appreciate your elders and stuff. I maybe not, maybe I didn't appreciate my elders as much as I should have. When I say elders, and from my perception at that time, I'm referring to my grandparents. And boy, my grandpa, the father of my mother, gosh, he was a man's man. And those were the days when you could say you were proud to be a man. And I don't know what people think about that these days. It's a controversial issue. I'm not here to talk about that kind of thing, but when I was born, I think my grandpa, let me think here, he was 59 years old when I was born, 61. The guy was 61. And so as I was growing up, he's a model for me right now. That late grandpa of mine, he picked us up when we were kids. He took us to our school, drove us to our school, and he was mature, and but he was all over the place, fixing the house for my mom, doing everything, all the man stuff around the house. Man stuff, that's a sexist term. I didn't mean it that way, but in those days it was called man stuff. And he was great at fixing things, and when in his mature years, he never slowed down, not one bit until the last 4 or 5 years of his life. And at that point, he just needed to keep busy. He's like me. I'm the kind of guy that needs to keep busy. I've never been a fixin' up and guy like that late grandpa was, but we always need to do something. So in the last 4 or 5 years of his life, he picked up a paintbrush. Instead of going around fixing the windows, fixing the steps, building a new backyard, a fence around the yard or whatever, he couldn't do that because of the aging process. So he started painting stuff. He painted pictures of things, of people or buildings. And he went to the um, home where, the local community building where mature people go and they, do things, and they have arts and crafts and whatnot. And that gave him a lot of energy later in his life. So that's a wonderful story. Maybe I'll tell more about that grandpa in some of my subsequent uh, videos here. Anyway, getting back to the disease that I had, this Meniere's disease, um, the episodes of the disease strike suddenly without warning, and you oftentimes vomit before you take another few steps, and you lose control of your bodily functions. And as I previously indicated, it's not fun to be alone when this happens. My wife, during that period, of course, had a life to live. She couldn't take care of me full time. So there were occasions where I was alone during these kind of events. Um, and I oftentimes stayed close to my bedroom, which was in a different house than we live in now. And that was because I needed to be close to where I needed to lay down. And sometimes when you have those episodes, you are in the bathroom for a great period of time, or you have a bucket in front of your face for a long period of time. And uh, then I'd lay down, and I knew that it was going to happen. You lay down because your body needs to, with that Meniere's disease, your body needs to relax. And so after about a half hour, I'd wake up suddenly, violently, needing to through my mouth, and then I would go into the I'd say, at a bucket, and then I'd pass out on the floor or I'd pass out on the bed. And so that life, there was no life. It's not a, they describe it as not a fatal disease. It's not fatal in and of itself, but it can be fatal when you fall, fall down, go boom, boom. And so I had to be careful in that regard, and I'm not alone. And I was never alone in that regard because there are countless people that have that particular affliction. Meniere's disease, I believe it was discovered after a name in honor of the scientist, the medical expert in France who discovered the affliction way back in the 1800s. So the doctors, as I previously indicated, that I had been visiting, nurses, hospitals, they didn't have any idea what I had to begin with. And it should have been obvious to a lot of them because it's kind of an obvious thing that happens quite frequently in society. You see people with these things, and all of a sudden one day I was talking to a new to me nurse practitioner that was helping, and she was my person, the go-to person I would visit. And she says, "You know, it sounds to me like you have Meniere's disease." And I said, "Well, what's that?" And she explained it to me. Of course, like many people do, I went to the internet, read all about it, got to know more about it, and discovered that it's mysterious and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to bore you with the health story. I'll move through this a little bit quicker because I know the health stories tend to bore the heck out of people after a period of time because that's what a lot of more mature folks talk about. Oh, my health, I broke a bone, I fell, my muscle doesn't work in my arm or whatever. So then I went to specialists that were giving me pharmaceutical products to help me. And the pharmaceutical products screwed up my internal system of my body, and I gained a massive amount of weight. I think within the first 2 or 3 months of taking those pharmaceuticals, I just ballooned. Big fat face, my big double chin started coming back like it wasn't a double chin. I'll tell you more about that in a little bit here. My chin size, my body size, but these are things that happen. And so it was weird in the sense that these pharmaceutical products did not help me. And I lost the hearing in my right ear. I am essentially deaf in my right ear as a result of this affliction. And a lot of people who get it, I mean a percentage, I don't know what the exact percentage is, of people lose some of their hearing or hearing in both ears. And I thank the Creator in heaven that I still have hearing in my left ear today. And so what happened? What happened to this disease? Why am I no longer showing symptoms of the disease? What cured me? Well, I would say that the cure did not come from the medical world as we know it, the standard allopathic physicians and nurses and hospitals. They did very little to help me. And I'm not trying to sound self-centered and talking about me. There's a lot of people that have this affliction. But for some reason, goodness knows, I started taking, after I'd been suffering from this thing for 4 or 5 years, I don't know exactly how long, I started taking vitamin D3. And when I started taking vitamin D3, I took something like 4, 5, or 6 I use that's called an international unit. I just started taking it because a guy that I knew had cancer. He was far younger than me, but he said that's great for your immune system. So, wow, okay, it's great for your immune system. I thought, well, I don't want to get cancer someday. So, in between my period of falling on the floor, boom, boom, uh, falling down the stairs a number of times, uh, just having no life whatsoever, I kept taking vitamin D3. And after about a month, all of a sudden, these horrible symptoms went away, and I did not have any problems with this Meniere's disease. I was not suffering from the symptoms. A lot of the things, they're called triggers that'll set you off, and I had experienced a lot of the triggers. They were salt. If I had something with a lot of salt in it, boom, trigger. Chocolate, trigger. Coffee, trigger. Uh, Spices, trigger. Caffeine of any kind, trigger. Food, if you eat enough to just fill your stomach, that's a trigger. If you take supplements, which of course vitamin D3 is a trigger, so I took it little bits, but if you take a whole bunch of vitamins, trigger, boom, oh, you're sick. The triggers go on and on. Trigger is not necessarily to be confused with an allergy. They call them triggers because they set you off. They set off your system, and it has something to do with your brain and how your nervous system takes in all the things that are happening to you. So there I was. It wasn't a good situation. And then all of a sudden the symptoms were gone. And it was like, okay, but because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I didn't immediately associate it. I did not immediately associate the lack of Meniere's symptoms with the taking of the vitamin D3. So this betterment of my symptoms, the loss of those negative symptoms, began, I would say, in the month of March of a certain year. So around the summer of that year, I started looking it up. I went online about vitamin D3 and does it help Meniere's disease, and it said, essentially, I'm not using the exact words of what was said there, is like, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not giving anyone medical advice here. I'm not educated in medicine, and I'm not giving you medical advice, and I'm not giving anyone medical advice because I can't do that because I'm not qualified. All I'm doing is talking about what happened to me. So as I was indicating in the summer of after this, I was starting to feel better. The online reports and scientific reports from medical doctors were saying, yes, indeed, it is believed by many medical experts that vitamin D3 can help you tremendously with this symptom. These symptoms of, and I was not an outdoor person rather. I didn't go outdoors a lot, and that's a natural source of vitamin D3 because I was working indoors because for quite a number of years I was a prolific writer of books. I was a ghostwriter, and I would write for people that were known, their names were known, or uh, people who were so-called unknowns, and people all over the place would hire me to write books, and that was what I did. And I was very energetic, and I was into that, and I was sitting down writing books and doing that kind of thing. And sometimes I would work, my fault, 12 to uh, 18 hours a day because I was in such demand for a period of time that I needed to meet the expectations of my clients. And so my health, I was not able to um, practice my craft at that time. So that's what happened to me. And so all of a sudden, I'm enjoying life. And life came back. It was as if some kind of halo or something came down from heaven, and it just kind of blessed me. It blessed my life. It gave me a new life that I'd never had before for a period of time. And all of a sudden I felt young again. I mean, they say that a lot of mature people feel young. In their brains, they're just as young as they were when they were so-called young. And I was healthy and vibrant. In recent years, people have told me that, wow, you sure look good. Wow, you look great. You haven't looked this good for a long, long time. And people that have had not met me and prior to my senior years, um, were amazed. They were just very happy for me and overjoyed. And I was happy for them because I was able more than I had been for a number of years to interact with them. And so that was a blessing. And so that's something for which I am very grateful. So I'm relatively new to this YouTube thing, and I've heard that it's a good idea for me to ask you, hey, go down, click the like button, subscribe to this channel, and write in the comment section below what you think of whatever the heck I said here. I couldn't repeat word for word what I've exactly told you here right now, but this is the first of my videos on this particular new channel, and I hope that you decide to visit me again here because I'm interested in chatting here with you. My name is Duke, and of course, I chose the name Chatty Duke as a goofy, corny sense of humor because when I was a young boy, I mean, one of my favorite shows on TV was named Patty Duke Show, and so that's a show that I liked. And this is kind of a play on the whole uh, Patty Duke. My channel's name is, of course, as you see, Chatty Duke. I'm not of that way, of course. So, but anyway, so here we are, and I'm going to be telling you lots of stories. If you ever return to my channel, if you, I hope you do, because and there's lots of channels out there where uh, older folks just like me are chit chatting, but I look forward to chatting with you a lot more often. I don't write books anymore because I think I've written uh, dozens and dozens of books, and I'm kind of all my fuel is spent in that regard. So now I'm in my older years. And so I'm glad you came. I'm glad you've listened at least to this point, and look forward to talking to you once again.